Chapter 13. As blood continued to flow on the streets of Salinas, the streets of Modesto were turning just as red. As many unnecessary crimes were now taking place in Modesto as anywhere else. Although Grattan didn't approve of these unwarranted crimes, he was now about to find out exactly what the mob was all about. With this in mind, when Grattan was released from Pelican Bay State Prison, he did so with a new outlook on life. He had spent almost 5 years behind the walls, and he was glad to be going home. However, he was now an NF member with a lifetime commitment to the mob, and he was sure that his release was no different than any other cell move. No matter where he chose to reside, in or out of prison, he was always subjected to honor his NF commitment for the rest of his life. Although Grattan had a few plans of his own, his NF orders took precedence over any and all personal feelings and goals. He was instructed to get established in Modesto, lay low for a while, and contact Jimmy Weasel Sanchez, his old cellmate. Once contact was made, he was then supposed to move near San Francisco, hook up with the NF connection to the Chinese triads, and report his findings to Big Smiley on a regular basis. These plans never materialized, however, because Sanchez had a sudden change of heart. For whatever reasons, Sanchez quit the gang, which quickly put his name in the hat, placed him on the NF's hit list, and made himself unavailable to NF members like Grattan, who might want to do more than just locate him. With Sanchez out of the picture, Grattan resorted to his plan B. He got a legitimate job, stayed out of trouble, and played the law-abiding citizen for his parole officer. But on the sly, he contacted a few of his old homeboys and started selling large amounts of methamphetamines. He had numerous customers and began making thousands of dollars. As time went by, Grattan was driving new cars, wearing new clothes, and sleeping with some of the best-looking women Modesto had to offer. Yeah, right. He was, in fact, building something similar to an NF stronghold, but, like most other NF members with money, he neglected his NF obligations, failed to report to Big Smiley, and basically did his own thing. Since he was making a lot of money, he knew he'd eventually have to face NF. And although he wasn't especially worried, never in a million years would he ever have imagined just how powerful NF leadership really was. On November 8, 1992, approximately 2 months after Grattan parole, James Spooquillo Coronado from San Jose, an NF member, knocked on the front door of Grattan's home. Grattan didn't recognize the homeboy standing in front of him, but the tattooed thug immediately identified himself. Grattan was in shock and couldn't believe his ears. He had no way of knowing how one of Big Smiley's torpedoes could have found him, since he lived at an address he had never reported as his own. Nevertheless, he realized he was face to face with a dangerous NF member whose sole reason for being in Modesto was to find him. Realizing he might be in danger, Grattan decided to play it cool, and he was glad he did. Coronado explained that he was sent to Modesto by Big Smiley to function there as a fellow NF member. He explained he was one of the selected few that also functioned in Salinas, San Jose, Sacramento, and other areas where his services might be needed. He told Grattan a little bit about himself and said he would never let anyone sit in the back seat of a car he was riding in. Grattan quickly read between the lines. He had been around enough killers to realize that Coronado was basically letting him know that he was an NF hitman and that he traveled from regiment to regiment doing the NF's dirty work. Grattan knew he had just been given a wake-up call and began hanging on every word Coronado said. Right then and there, Grattan decided he would start taking his NF obligations a lot more seriously. He wasn't about to get caught slipping again, and he began to imagine the type of catchphrase, "have gun, will travel," a stone-cold killer like Coronado might have printed on a business card if he ever passed him out. If Grattan looked upon Coronado as a killer, he quickly realized that Coronado was but one of many. After a lengthy conversation, Coronado further explained that the appointed leaders of the NF stronghold in San Jose had just been indicted on a wide variety of drug charges, which included 9 counts of murder. He informed Grattan that there were numerous witnesses involved in the case and that it would be Grattan's job to locate, silence, and/or eliminate anyone who created any additional problems. Grattan took the hint. He knew he had some cleanup work to do. No, Grattan was able to avoid any involvement with the San Jose indictments because Coronado was reincarcerated on a parole violation before he could ever deliver the hit list to him. As fate would have it, however, Grattan's plans did not include hit lists. Rather, he was by now attempting to build a criminal empire of his own.